with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone line. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the Radio Chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcast in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Ooh, thank God it's Friday. It's Friday. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then there's only one place it could be. It is here on Southern Sense. We're live here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. We're up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Blu-ray, whatever. Just go to our website, which is the name of the show, put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the Radio Chick, Annie. And again, Curtis is on his way home from Pennsylvania back down to Florida, so he's not with us. But once again, we've got the ever so vivacious and intellectual and funny co-host Kel Fritzy of Red Fox Radio. Kel, and guess what? My chat room keeps on crashing on me, Kel. What a way to start the show.
I noticed that. Annie. Oh, and I see you back. And Larry's saying he's getting no audio. Blog Talk Radio. Oh, we just love you. We love you so much, Blog Talk Radio.
Man.
They're getting cold in their stocking.
And there I just crashed again. Holy moly. Kel, we've got two great guests on the show today, and I'm hoping that they're both going to be able to call in. I'm going to just tell them try refreshing their screens, and they should get the audio coming back up. But, oh, God, it's Blog Talk Radio, SOS, same as usual.
You know what I noticed, though, and that happens to a lot of us, is that when you go to listen to your favorite show, you know, like us Southern Sense people, if you go into the chat room before the show starts live, I find that you have to refresh your chat page to get the sound. I've noticed that on all the radio programs, Annie.
They did an upgrade, and it's not an upgrade, it's a downgrade, Blog Talk. So, Blog Talk, if you guys are listening, stop screwing us up, please. Oh, man.
Really?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Kim is saying that she's got it up working, so that's what it is. They need to refresh the screen. But I'm happy to see everyone that's coming up in the chat room, and I know it's going to start to fill up real soon. Welcome everyone that's listening in on their smart devices. I see you up in the studio. And just remember, Blog Talk Radio no longer tells you to press 1 so that the host knows that you have a comment or question. So please remember to press 1 if you want to participate in the show. And we are waiting for our first guest to call in, Joe Messina. He has a radio show called The Real Side, which they can find at therealside.com. Hopefully, okay. And Larry's saying that he's getting no audio too. So I'm going to tell him to try going to our website, because then they also have the Spreaker that they can listen into. And I'm just putting this in the chat room, so just bear with me if I can spell things correctly. I'm not good at spelling today. You notice that. It's Friday. Your brain is not supposed to function on Fridays. Oh, man. Those that listen in know we normally start each and every one of our shows with a dedication to a fallen hero, and today's is a special dedication, but we shifted that to the second part of the show, and hopefully our guests will call in within a few minutes so that we can keep everything on schedule. Otherwise, I'll just have to ad-lib while we go along, Kel.
Well, Annie, what is exercising you today?
Oh, man. Let's see. The Trump mania, the Trump phobia is gotten worse and worse as the days go on. What was the name of that bimbo actress? Oh God, she's got tattoos all over herself. Not Janine Garofalo, not her.
Janine Garofalo. She's got that really weird last name.
No, oh God, her first name begins with an L. It's another. Oh, Jesus, there goes my chat room again. Just crashed again. That's 5 times within the first 5 minutes. Unbelievable.
Actress name
it comes up.
With an L, tattoos.
Jeez. Lena something or other.
You know, they're all beginning to look the same to me. Liberal. They're all beginning to look like the social justice warriors now.
Oh man! But she turned around and took a selfie of herself sitting on the toilet. This is how self-absorbed with people are with themselves up on social network. It has gotten so obscene that she takes a selfie of herself on the toilet, posts it up onto the social network, and then gets upset because people were putting unkind comments on her post. I mean, who wants to have a picture of themselves posted for the whole world to see while you're sitting on the crapper? Really? And then think it's not going to get a lot of odd comments. And I swear the chat room on me is continuing to crash. This is now 8 times it has gone down on me. What is going on with Blog Talk Radio? I swear. It's crazy. Alina Dunman, thank you. Thank you,
really
Kimberly.
Is.
Thank you very much. So it is possible my guest may not be able to get in onto the show today. And there goes the chat room again. Holy moly. I don't believe this.
You're going to be a bouncing ball today. Yeah, Lena Dunham, that's the one that Kimberly came up with, yeah.
But, what is their thought? Here you are in one of your most intimate and private moments, taking care of a personal body function, and you think it's okay to post it up onto a social network? Oh, my goodness.
Exactly. Wasn't it Lisa Dunham that was booed off the stage because of her anti-Trump tirades going on there?
Well, actually, I don't even know who she is.
I think that's the same one.
Actually, I don't even know who she is.
She's a nobody.
I don't think I've ever seen anything she's been in.
She's not even she's not even a B actress. She's not even a starlet. She's really something that crawled out of the gutter. I'm familiar with her. Yeah, I think she's the one that was on the stage there a little while back, and she was deciding that she was going to go on a Trump tirade. Well, she picked the wrong audience. She was booed right out of the theater. It was classic. I'll try to dig up that YouTube video and send it to you, Annie, but it was just beautiful. Poetry in motion.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Hopefully this is our guest calling in, area code 661. You're on the air live with Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio. To whom am I speaking?
And it's Joe Messina, who can't figure out how to use a phone.
Joe, because I do know that you do host your show also here on Blog Talk Radio as well as terrestrial radio and everywhere else. But you know how messed up they are. I swear. I have gotten kicked out of my own chat room now. I've counted now in the first 10 minutes of the show. Actually, we're at 8 minutes into the show. I've been booted out 12 times in 8 minutes out of my own chat. So, come on.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
We were filling time discussing Lena Dunman's selfie of herself on the crapper and wondering why she's so upset.
Thank you for that.
What a vision.
Nothing like making your afternoon, Joe. And I'm so looking forward to speaking with you. Oh my goodness, I'm Kel. I'm Kel Fritzy. I'm Annie's sidekick. I've been reading your biography, and believe me, when I grow up, I want to be a radio host just like you.
No, you don't. No, you're not. You should get a real job. Oh God, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh man!
I mean, all right. What are we hitting on? I mean, there's so much crazy stuff going on in this world, and just amazing to me.
Actually, I was watching Fox News before coming on the air. Oh, figure I'm conservative watching Fox News. Oh, bad me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I love Kellyanne Conway, and I don't know why Trump hasn't asked her to be his chief spokesperson. She is brilliant because everyone was coming along and telling her that she's a winner because she helped Trump win the presidency. So they're calling her, instead of a sore loser, a sore winner. And she goes, I'm not a sore winner. I'm a winner. Get over it. Well, how much more brilliant can you want for a Trump spokesperson?
You know what I love about her? She's very much like him. If you really just listen to how she talks and how she approaches different issues, there's no foo-foo around it. There's no sugarcoating it. She just comes out and says it like it is, which is what we've been missing for over 200 years, I believe. Our founding fathers, the first few presidents, like Washington, you read some of their speeches and you read the way they spoke to people, they were very black and white about issues. Now, somewhere down the road, we decided we couldn't hurt people's feelings and that kind of thing, and now I think we're getting back to it. You look at what Trump's doing with Twitter. He's bypassing the newspapers. Think about that. He's bypassing the printed press.
What a traitor!
I don't need you guys. You're gonna lie about me anyway. So let me just put it out there on my own. And I just think that this is the way to. I think what he's doing is the way to do it. Look at all the news stations. Look at what's going on with how it doesn't matter what he says or how he says it. They're going to twist it and turn it. Now he's got Kellyanne out there, and I like the fact that in a couple of areas she hasn't been on the same page as him. So it proves that she's not just a spokeshole. She's not just a repeating mouth of his again, if you would. She's out there telling people how she feels things should run as well.
There's my co-host just put up in the chat room, Kel, thank you very much. But there was talk about taking away Trump's Twitter account. I swear the mainstream media, or his lamestream media, is foaming at the mouth. How dare he use Twitter? How dare he? Oh, but remember Obama's first days in office when he sent out his very first tweet, and this was news on every major network?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. But again, I want to go back to think of all the rules that he's broken. When he coming into the primary, we all said, a lot of us sat around and said, look, he's breaking all the rules. He's not doing it the right way. He doesn't understand how it works. And, thank God, because he won the primary by not understanding how it works. And then coming into the general election, right? We're all on it. We're all saying, hey, you know what? He's not presidential. You can't speak to people like that. You can't do this. You can't do that. Guess what? He's now the Presidente of the United States, or will be here shortly. Now, as he's putting his cabinet together and what he's tweeting out, we're all sitting there going, you can't do that. You can't say that. That guy's not right. I think we need to shut up and watch. That's my own personal opinion. I mean, he is not. Look at some of his picks. All the conservatives that were screaming about some of his picks are very conservative that he has on the different that he's put out there for his different secretaries. So, again, I say let's watch it play out.
Oh, that's a huge amen to that. My friend, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Callen, was on Tucker Carlson yesterday. God bless. I love this man. I just could hug the death out of him. But he said it correctly because he's been contemplating General Petraeus for several different positions, one of them being Secretary of State. But we got to remember, Petraeus did break the rules when he allowed top secret information to get out of his hands into someone else's. No one's security was really breached. It was something that could seem innocent, but really he actually knew the rules and broke them. So, which I agree, he should not be considered for Secretary of State. Yet we're holding up conservatives and Republicans to such a higher standard, and we allow the left to get away with it. Where is the orange jumpsuit for Hillary Clinton? Why isn't she locked up for what she's done?
Yeah, don't you find it interesting? I don't know if you've noticed the last couple of days is these conflict of interest rumors going through the alphabet networks, and they're saying they've noticed that some of the European nations, some of the big companies out of Europe are now switching their events to Trump Tower type of places or Trump Hotel type of places. And isn't that a conflict of interest? I mean, he's using his presidency to have those countries have their events at his. Well, first of all, I don't think he sent out a memo and made the phone call that said, hey, starting January 20th, you'll only use Trump accommodations when you come to the U.S. of A. And interesting how They have totally ignored every single thing that Hillary Clinton did and Bill Clinton did. Nothing those two did had any kind of bad taste or bad aroma to it to the left. Trump, it doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter what families he feeds. Do you remember the pastor that was in the Iranian prison, and I think he was released last January or February? I can't think of the guy's name.
Oh, no, I can see his face. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
Young guy.
So he was in prison. Yeah, very young, with young kids, and he was being tortured, and he was being beaten to renounce Christ on a daily basis, and not a word from the State Department. They weren't really working on his behalf.
You're talking about Saeed Abedini is who you're referring.
I believe so. Yeah. And he, so he's in prison back there. The State Department checked on his family one time. Do you know that? They made one call to the State family, said, "We're working on it. We'll let you know as we start to move forward with his release, if we can even get him released." And through that whole time, Trump had called and had people call that family on several occasions to see if there's anything that they needed. When they were hurting for funds, when things were really going kind of sideways for them, he had somebody run a check down there for $10,000 so they would have something to feed the kids with and take care of bills and what have you. So they ignore all that stuff. And it wasn't anything. It wasn't a press release. He actually, Mr. Trump went out of his way to make sure that people don't know about things like that. But yet, another country switching and using one of his hotels, or a hotel with his name on it, he doesn't even own all the hotels with his name on them, is all of a sudden a conflict of interest. It's definitely a whole different way of doing business for the left.
You know, it's funny because there was an NFL team flying into I forget who's playing this weekend. I really should know because I could get my football picks in tonight. But by the way, last week I had 11 straight wins, so only 3 losses. So I'm doing pretty good.
Wow. I'm good. You take bets over. You take bets. I'll send you some money.
But there's a team flying into New York to play, and I forget who it is. I'll figure it out later. But several of the team members saying they're not going to stay at the Trump Hotel with other team members. And I looked at my husband and said, "Honey, let's find the nearest Trump Hotel and book ourselves in there. That way we don't have to listen to any liberals." If I know they're going to boycott Trump hotels, that is the place for the rest of us to go.
Yeah, we are going to be up for a fight for the upcoming years, and whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump or what have you, I think the mere fact. I talked to a publisher the other day of a pretty large newspaper, not an LA Times kind of thing, but a pretty large newspaper, and he was telling me he went to an event in Sacramento, and there were probably a little over 100 publishers there from up and down the state, all sizes of papers, and the chairman, I guess, or the leader of the group. Got up and was speaking to them and said, "Listen, here's how it works. We're going to ignore bias because we all know that we're pretty much biased. We're most of us in the room are left leaning. Truth be damned, and we cannot let Trump get a foothold. We cannot let this Trump presidency take a hold on anything." And he said after about 5 minutes of listening to this guy speak, about 30 of them got up and left the room. And he said that's what you can expect because this is just a microcosm. That's what you can expect for the next 4 years. The newspapers, the left-wing media are going to be working very hard and not giving Trump any credit for anything.
That is a truth. And you've got Republicans actually actively working against him. There's the one electoral delegate down in Texas who has been on the air. He has written editorials saying why he will not allow his electoral vote go to Trump, which is in direct violation of the Electoral College rules, which means his vote will become then null and void. What he's doing is technically illegal.
Yeah, I did that story last night. 29 states actually have laws on the books or on how the Electoral College or the electoral, the electorate going to Washington are supposed to vote. And if they don't vote that way, they're subject to fine and prosecution. However, nobody in all the years have been prosecuted, and they say the reason behind that was nobody by switching their vote has changed an election. Have gone totally against what the people's will was. So they've never really enforced it or done it. And they're believing they're not going to have to this time. You hear not a lot of noise and a lot of grumbling, but what do you have to have? You'd have to have a 31 or 35, I can't remember the number, of the electorals change their vote. And I just don't believe you're going to see that. I don't think you're going to see that happening.
No.
And I was calling Trump victory, and not that I have a crystal ball, don't get me wrong, and it wasn't for any other reason, but, I was calling a victory on my show, and I was saying, it's not because it's Donald Trump, and it's not even because he's a successful businessman. It's because people are tired of politics. They're tired of politicians. They're tired of D.C., and I'm telling you, Mickey Mouse could have got elected. I really believe that, as long as he wasn't a politician.
Well, it's funny. I had someone send me a lengthy email because I was saying, if you look at the crowds that showed up for Trump compared to anyone else, and especially when it came down to just Trump or Hillary, here he's got 14,000 in this one auditorium, and she's lucky if she gets even 1,000 in her rallies. And I said, all you have to do is look at the crowds that are showing up for him compared to her. And if you show up at one of these rallies, that person is going to show up at the voting booth. You know that. So
right.
It was just looking at the basic math. And, of course, thank you, BTR, for crashing again. Just right now, I cannot get back in the chat room. Holy moly. Blog Talk Radio, you're driving me nuts. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man.
I'm getting the live coach now, Annie.
What? So you're exactly right about all this. I think this is hilarious. We were doing the numbers when he was out doing his rallies, and I said, look, in the area I live in, there's 217,000 people live in the city that I live in, and I said the Republican Party out here, when they do their weekend walks and they try to get the message out, we have 80 paid weekend walkers, and I said if we get to 16 to 18,000 homes a month, we are excited. We're happy. Now, these are homes that we go to unasked, uninvited, to drop off paperwork that they may or may not want. I said, but you have to understand something. At a Trump rally, he's bringing in 10, 12, 15,000 people. They're people who have to get in a car. They got to drive there. They're excited about being there. And I said, so you really need to think this thing through. He in a 1 hour rally, he's got people driving 3 hours to see him. So this is a big deal. These are people that want his stuff, and they're going home and enthusiastically telling 3, 5, 10, 15 other people about it. So to think that to say he didn't have a ground game, he doesn't have enough offices, he doesn't know what he's doing, he knew exactly what he was doing. And that's why he won, because he actually went out, reached out, hung out with the people.
Yeah. I was also, this one person that wrote me the letter was saying, well, I can't possibly. And I said, look at it this way. If you do not vote, you are giving Clinton a vote, because now that progressive who's voting for her, you will not be canceling out their vote.
Yep.
If you fail
That's
to go
right.
out and vote and bring someone with you to the voting booth, you cannot then cancel out their vote plus add one additional to it. And I said, think of it this way. Donald Trump is like the pet rock. A pet rock could do the job better than Hillary Clinton, so vote for the pet rock.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I tell people, look, even if you don't like Trump and you really don't like Hillary and you don't want to vote for Trump because you don't want to be forced to vote, at least nullify somebody else's vote. And simply, as you said, the way you do that is you vote for Donald. And, people were mad at me saying, well, what you're saying is if we don't vote for Trump, it's a vote for Hillary. I said, yeah, because it's really plain, simple math. You got two people living in a household, and people can relate to this. You've got Dems and Republicans that live together. You had people in households where one voted for Trump, one voted for Hillary. That household, for all intents and purposes, got 0 votes or did not vote for a president. Think about that.
Well,
right?
Do you know one thing I've always wanted to try to do is become the fly on the wall in the household of Mary Matlin and James Carville? Can you imagine what the conversations of that?
No, you'd have to be in a cage to protect yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Talk about flying ashtrays.
You wouldn't want to open. So when things start flying all around the place, you don't want to be there waiting to get beat up.
Oh, talk about delicate personalities. What is with these kids today? And I got to give a certain shout out to one of our listeners, Sue. She sent me a video of this young kid, Hunter Avalon. And actually, the kid has great YouTube videos out there. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but I'm arranging for him to come on as a guest. And he's already said, yes, he's interested. But he's one of these millennial kids, and he is saying, I can't stand my own generation because they want all these safe spaces. It's you can't use certain trigger words. You can't say this. You can't do that. And look at the greatest generation that we're losing, those that fought in World War II and now Korea. We're losing something like 942 of those veterans a day. That's a phenomenal number.
No,
and what they went through and what our kids, oh God, you can't take away my Xbox. That's really, you're really intimidating me.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, but I tell you what, I talk about this on my show a lot, and I bring it back to, and I make people crazy when I say it. This is the parents. This isn't society. Parents have done these to these kids. Parents have allowed these kids to grow up thinking that the center of the universe revolves around them, and if the teacher's mad at them, it's the teacher's fault. If they get in trouble outside of school, it's the policeman's fault. If they, if they steal something and get caught at the store, it's the store's fault, for enticing them with the stuff they have on the shelf and on the counter. Nothing is their fault. They take responsibility for nothing. So when you sit there and, we expect these kids not to want safe spaces, not to want trigger warnings, I look at that and go, you're a product of how you were brought up. And again, we say that about ourselves, even the baby boomer generation, right? Our parents kind of molded us and shaped us. They helped us with our work ethic and that kind of thing. So I look at these kids and I'm going, my God, look what you've raised. You've got a bunch of kids the day after the election. They are miserable, upset, freaking out, and they don't even know why. They have because Trump's going to do all these things. You know what? The country's been through a civil war, a revolutionary war. We've had all kinds of things happen throughout the years. We're still here, and those people are long gone. So get over yourselves. You should have got off your butts and done something and not just stayed home and go, well, people will never vote for Trump. Well, guess what? They did.
Well, I've said this because I have really good friends of mine, ever since I moved here to South Carolina, and it's going on, actually January will be 16 years. Oh, my goodness. But for all these years, this is a veteran. His sons are served in the military also. All these years, for his 60 or some odd years that he had been eligible to vote, never cast a vote. He or his wife have never cast a vote. And every year I would go after them and say, hey, listen, you're always complaining. You talk a conservative game, but you're not registered to vote. Just register to vote. And then all you have to do is just drive down the street, go to the polling place, punch the little screen, set enter, and go back home. No one has to know how you voted, but just simply get out there and vote and do something that you're complaining about. Just start the first step on the road to recovery by having your voice heard by voting. In 70 years, he and his wife never voted. This year, I saw them at happy hour, and they had big smiles on their faces and said, we voted. And I said, you finally listened to me. You got it. But that's the Trump people.
Thank you. Yeah, it's getting worse and worse and worse. These people really, you got to get out there and do something. You can't just expect other people. I don't know if you know this, but I've been elected to a school board here in Southern California. It's a pretty large school board.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I am the conservative, right-wing wactoid on the school board, but whatever. And what's really funny is the amount of people that come up and say, you can't be on a school board. You're a right-wing Christian conservative. We can't have those on school boards. I'm thinking, well, why not? You were fine with us running it. The way the schools are running, you're fine with. You love the school system. It's why you moved up here. Every one of us is a right-wing conservative wactoid in your eyes. Really, give me a break.
We're the adorable deplorables. Don't you know that?
I think.
And the whole basket is right here. No, I will say, because I've also... Go ahead.
I've got to get rolling. I got to be out of here in about 72 seconds.
Oh, all right. So. Well, Joe, I want to thank you, and I'm going to have you come back on where you can spend more time with us. And your show, they can
I would
find
love
it.
to.
You'll find it at
Just
The Real Side, therealside.com.
Right,
correct?
therealside.com. You get stations, times, classic podcasts, all that fun stuff.
And you're here on Blog Talk. You're over there on terrestrial as well as on several other different sites. You're like in, 39 states? Oh, my goodness. You're all over the place.
We're like horse manure on a ranch.
Well, from one Italian to another, thank you so much. And I will welcome you back when you can.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll be in touch
I
with
would love to come back. Thanks a lot. All right.
You take care. All right, check it out. Joe Messina, therealside.com. What a fun guest, Kel.
Oh, he is fantastic. Oh, my goodness. What a ball of energy, too. I can see why he's so successful on the airwaves, Annie. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, man. But, how he got into radio is really funny because someone asked him to host a show for them while they were away. The actual host of the show just up and went and quit. And they said, Joe, can you come in and do an hour? So he came in and did an hour. And that hour ended up going into 2 hours. And that 2 hours then moved into 3 hours. So now he's syndicated across the United States. And he's got a fantastic show. I've listened into it the last couple of nights. And I'm telling you, he's great. He is absolutely great. He's fast-paced. He's funny. But he gets to the heart of the matter. So, guys, check it out, therealshow.com. We got a caller in on the line, Cal. Let me bring this individual up. Area code 816. You're on the air live with Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick Annie, with Kel Fritzy of Red Fox Radio. To whom am I speaking?
Wow, you still have say a mouthful, Annie.
Hello, Thomas. I thought it was your number, but since you hadn't called in a while, I didn't recognize it at first. You got a quick say, because I got to go into the dedication also, Thomas.
No problem. I wanted to share something with you guys real quick. I'll try to speak as fast as you and Kel do. Looking at all the vitriol that took place in this past election, I knew that Mr. Trump was going to win. So I did something very unusual. And hear me out real quick. I didn't vote for either one of them. I still voted. I wrote in the name of Jesus on the line for president. And here's the reason why. Because just as I thought, I'm seeing a lot of conservatives who are basically working lock, stock, and barrel in step with Hillary supporters that's trying to undermine Mr. Trump's candidacy. And the reason why I didn't vote for either one of them, because at some point when it happens, I'm going to have to address both sides of the issue and say, hey, how you guys are acting is ridiculous. And then when the liberals come back and say, well, you just saying that because you voted for Trump, I could say, no, I was actually neutral on this whole thing because I wanted Mr. Trump to win. I supported him, but my whole premise is this. Ultimately, someone has to call out the stupidity of our conservatives who are working with liberals to undermine the presidency of a man that they haven't even given a chance.
Well, Thomas,
so that's why I did what I did.
Thomas, thank you for the call, but there's a flaw in your premise, because by not voting for either candidate, you fail to negate a vote that would have gone to Hillary Trump. That's where your premise fails. We need people out there to vote against her by voting for Trump to negate the person that voted for her. So by doing a write-in, you actually gave your vote to her because you did not negate a Clinton vote. That's where people, when they think they write in a candidate, they're doing something good, they're standing for a principle. But in the end, had she gotten into the office of the president, then it would have been fallen directly on your shoulders because you failed to negate a Clinton vote.
No, and Annie, and I'm going to say this, the people who make that premise, that argument right there, that premise is bound in fallacy, and here's the reason why. Because anytime someone says, "Well, if a vote If I don't vote for Hillary, then I have to vote for Trump. See, that's where people fail to look at it from both sides, because you have so many biases both ways. But like I said, I was looking at things from a whole other level, not just about stopping Hillary.
Well, Thomas, I'm going to cut you off. I got to cut you off here because I do have to get to the dedication. I still believe your premise is wrong, because if you do not negate the Clinton vote and allow the person standing behind you to also vote for Trump, that's 2 votes for Trump, 1 to negate Clinton and 1 to push Trump over the top. And that's what happened in this election. People got off their butts. They decided to negate the Clinton votes and then bring friends to the polls to push them over the top. Thomas, I really do. I've got to go, and I've got to move onto the dedication. But thank you for the call, sweetheart. You know we love you. We may disagree with you. We still love you, Thomas. All right. For those that are listening and know, we usually start each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. But because of the conflict of times with Joe Messina, we had to move it to this part of the hour. So, Kel, you ready for the dedication?
I am, Annie. I am.
All right, and this one is a little bit different and special. Today's dedication is going to go out to the 136 sailors and Marines who lost their lives aboard the USS Turner when it was sunk on January 3rd of 1944. And I'm taking this half hour to do the dedication because it is lengthy. And what brought my attention to the USS Turner was an article in my local paper, the Beaufort Gazette, on Sunday, November 27th. And this was by Washington Post reporter Cleve R. Wootson. And he wrote, "Explosion after explosion rocked the USS Turner. Detonation so powerful they broke windows in the buildings near New York's harbor, more than a mile away. A final and particularly violent explosion ripped the Gleaves-class destroyer in 2. By 8:30 a.m. on January 3rd, 1944, less than 2 hours after the initial internal explosion, the Turner was submerged in the Atlantic Ocean. Other ships scrambled to pluck more than 150 survivors from the frigid waters. But 136 sailors died that day, many trapped behind watertight doors while manning their battle stations, according to the Associated Press. Officially, the bodies of the sailors killed on the USS Turner were never recovered. The Pentagon still considers them missing. But a World War II historian says the remains of some of the missing sailors may have been buried in nearby Long Island Veterans Cemetery. Although the military men are not identified, and their families were never informed of what might be their final resting place. The revelation was made by Ted Darcy, a Marine veteran who believes the governments should be doing more to honor the war dead of the USS Turner. There should have been a group burial, Darcy told the Washington Post. If there were just body parts, combine them into one grave and put all the names of the dead there. Build a monument. Darcy, the founder of the Massachusetts-based WFI research group, said he got details about the burial site after a 4-year fight with the National Cemetery Administration, a department of the Division of Veterans Affairs. During the course of 1944, there were 4 separate burials made at the Long Island National Cemetery, Darcy wrote. He wrote to the Defense POW MIA accounting agency in a letter he shared with the Post. There were the remains recovered during the salvage operations. Darcy letter says investigating his claims and erecting a proper burial monument will result in removing 136 more names from the Navy MIA listing. For now, the plain white tombstone Darcy discovered just has "Unknown U.S. Sailor" written on them, along with the date of the USS Turner explosion, January 3, 1944. Staff Sergeant Christian Dewis a spokeswoman for the accounting agency, said it's possible that more than one USS Turner sailor remains are buried at the cemetery. But she said her agency hasn't found records for those graves. And the agency wouldn't exhume a grave based solely on Darcy's findings, she said. It takes years of research to determine if we have a valid reason to disinter a site, she told the Post, adding that she didn't know if an investigation based on Darcy's claims had begun. Darcy, who founded his research group in 1991, said commingling remains was not uncommon in the fog of war. The 4 grave sites could hold the bodies of many, many more sailors, he said. Families who lost loved ones in the USS Turner disaster told the AP that they were never informed about recovered bodies or burials in a New York cemetery, only that their relatives who died that day in 1944 were missing. The Navy report doesn't say what sparked the internal explosion, although crew members were defusing munitions at the time, Darcy said. That's the article from Associated Press. But this is from a blog written by Steve Steeljaw. 0600. Aboard the Cleves-class destroyer USS Turner DD-648, the crew is either moving to breakfast or to stations in preparation for an 0700 underway time for the Brooklyn Navy Yards for a scheduled refit and repair period. Laid down in November of 1942 and commissioned in April 1943, she is the second ship to bear the name of War of 1812 hero Captain Daniel Turner. The Lieutenant Commander Henry Wygant commanding, she participated in 3 wartime convoys, engaging a possible German sub on the 3rd. On the night of October 23rd, Turner was acting as an advance ASW escort for the convoy when she picked up an unidentified surface contact on her SG radar. At 1943, about 11 minutes after the initial radar contact, Turner's lookout made visual contact with what proved to be a German submarine running on the surface, decks awash, at about 500 yards distance. Almost simultaneously, Turner came hard left and opened fire with her 5-inch 40mm and 20mm guns. During the next few seconds, the destroyer scored one 5-inch hit on the U-boat's conning tower, as well as several 40mm and 20mm hits there and elsewhere. The submarine began to dive immediately and deprived Turner of any opportunity to ram her. However, while the U-boat made her dive, Turner began a depth charge attack. She fired 2 charges from her Port K gun battery and appeared to hit the water just above the submerged U-boat. Then, as the destroyer swung around above the U-boat, Turner roiled a single depth charge off her stern. Soon after the 3 depth charges exploded, Turner crewmen heard a 4th explosion, the shock from which caused the destroyer to lose power to her SG and FD radars, to the main battery, and to her sound gear. It took her at least 15 minutes to restore power entirely. Meanwhile, she began a search for evidence to corroborate a sinking or regain control with the contact. At about 2017, she picked up another contact on the SG radar, located about 1,600 yards off the port beam. Turner came left and headed towards the contact. Not long thereafter, her bridge watch sighted an object lying low in the water. Those witnesses definitely identified the object as a submarine, which appeared to be sinking by the stern. Unfortunately, Turner had to break contact with the object in order to avoid a collision with another of the convoy's escorts. By the time she was able to resume her search, the object had disappeared. Turner and Sturtevant DE-239 remained in the area and conducted further searches for the submarine or for proof of her sinking, but failed in both instances. All that can be said is probably the destroyer heavily damaged an enemy submarine and may have sunk her. No conclusive evidence exists to support the latter conclusion. On the 24th, the two escorts rejoined the convoy, and the crossing continued peacefully. When the convoy divided itself into two segments according to designation on November 4, Turner took station as one of the escorts for the Norfolk-bound portion. 2 days later, she saw her charges safely into port, and then departed in return to New York, where she arrived on 7 November. Now returning from that escort duty, she was anchored off Ambrose Light, 4 miles southeast of Rockaway Point, Long Island. A strong wind had been blowing since late afternoon of the 2nd, with moderate snow wrapping everything in white and muffling all sound. And this is from the USS Turner.org, their memorial page. Commander Henry Sollitt Wygand, Jr. of the USS Turner never had a chance. Without warning, a mysterious explosion ripped open the main deck, sending it sky high, toppling most of the mast into the deckhouse and smashing the ship's only link with the world, destroying the ship's nerve center and the emergency transmission radio system. Commander Wygand, along with many of his officers, were killed immediately. Sailors were blown to the deck. The bleeding bodies were scattered everywhere. Fire erupted instantly, while the engine room quickly filled with hot, poisonous smoke and fumes. At the wheelhouse, it collapsed. It was accompanied by an unbearable screech of grinding steel. Many more seamen were blown over the side into the freezing water. The engineers feverishly worked to maintain power in subdued darkness, waiting for orders from the bridge. Orders never came. It was 3:30 a.m., January 3, 1944, when the Turner quietly maneuvered through the wind, rain, and sleet and darkness and dropped anchor after completing 9 months of active sea duty in the North Atlantic. Here she was, 4 miles southeast of Rockaway Point, Long Island, in 60 feet of water awaiting new official orders. The Bristol-class Navy destroyer designated DD-648 was one of 56 that were built in Federal Shipyards facilities in New Jersey. It was named in honor of Captain Daniel Turner, a hero of the War of 1812. It took 5 months to build, a record time even with today's automated shipbuilding techniques. This fortress could make in excess of 33 knots with her twin-screw machinery. Chief Machinist Mate Rene H. Pinsett was getting the engine room set up so that the Turner could weigh anchor at 7 a.m. sharp. He was lighting off the boiler and getting ready to start up on time when suddenly, and without warning, a thunderous explosion violently shook the destroyer. The concussion threw me across the engine room against the bulkhead, he recalled. All communications were now useless, and he couldn't talk to the bridge. The engine room quickly filled with smoke and toxic gases. I secured the blowers, hoping they would slow the smoke from coming down. We were busy. At the time, there were 6 of us in the engine room, he explained. Dave Merrill, the radio man, tried to send an SOS through the emergency transmitter, but found the main radio room useless and in shambles. Later, he said that what bothered him the most was the loss of a brand-new suit of tailor-made blues that cost me $49. The first blast ripped the 5-inch guns out of the mounts like they were toys. Sailors watched in awe and disbelief as the cannons turned end over end. Flames belched suddenly from another gun mount. Coxswain Raymond O. Pomp said that his crew immediately broke out the CO2 extinguishers to put out the fires erupting from the number 3 mount. When the extinguisher emptied, they hooked up the hose. We were especially concerned in preventing the gun's ammunition nearby from exploding, he explained. All hands were either fighting fire or taking care of some of the guys that got hurt. I heard 3 blasts in all. There was no confusion, no panic, even when the fuel oil flared up and lit up the stormy winter sky. The way the flames reflected on the rolling waves was weird. It was real scary, with the artillery shells exploding around us, he said. Luckily, The crew left the forward mess room a few minutes before the initial blast. That's where, without any warning whatsoever, the explosion tore open a gigantic hole. As with most of the meals of the day, the 200 crewmen were always fed in shifts, and the engineers had just finished when it all happened. The engineers worked continuously to maintain enough pressure to operate the ship's fire water main. It was difficult, groping in the semi-darkness, choking and trying to see through bloodshot eyes. The crew heroically remained at their posts, attending to the stricken bodies in the brightness of the burning fuel oil. Coxswain Williams, on duty at the Coast Guard lookout station on Sandy Hook, luckily happened to see the destroyer explode through the haze. A general quarters alarm dispatched a subchaser and a 77-foot launch to the scene. The need for assistance spread quickly. Immediately upon arriving, the cutter rescued a man bobbing about in a torn mattress, while another clung desperately to the ship's mascot, a little mongrel terrier called Turn 2. Survivors were certain the order to abandon ship would come. It came from the cutter's captain at 7 a.m. The 83-foot subchaser, the larger of the vessels, pushed her bow athwart the burning destroyer and lashed in to receive the stranded seamen. The bright flames of burning oil made the operation easier to see, while other Coast Guard units continued to cruise the area in search of missing sailors. Officially, the cause of the mysterious explosion was blamed on defective ammunition. This explanation doesn't ring true simply because the experienced and well-disciplined crew would have been alerted to any sensitive munition problems during the previous 9 months they worked together. A more popular theory attributed the blast to a U-boat activity. It was a well-known fact that Germans had sunk dozens of ships in and about New York Harbor. The heavy, blistery weather that blanketed the morning of January 3, 1944, could have provided enough cover for a sub to prowl in, releasing numerous torpedoes to create the havoc witnessed on the Turner. A normal complement on destroyers of this class consisted of approximately 200 men. Of that number, 163 were actually rescued. It's logical to presume that 37 men joined Commander Weigart on the missing in action list. Ashore, reports later revealed that the explosion affected people in a variety of ways. Besides the concussion and spooky whistling gusts, were accompanied by an unexplained rumbles that mysteriously rattled and shattered windows. Some thought it was an earthquake. Directly west of where the Turner exploded, covering the entire length of Staten Island's 15 miles, the countryside residents were bewildered and confused. In the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn along the waterfront, a woman was sure that the heavy woman upstairs fell out of bed. Suburban dwellers thought that their oil burners exploded. Up and down the New Jersey and Long Island shores, as far away as Belleville, New Jersey, folks reported strange happenings. Even in Bayshore and Babylon on Long Island, reports came in that people felt the explosion's vibrations too. Into this desperate situation stepped a remarkable man. Lieutenant Commander Frank A. Erickson, United States Coast Guard. Erickson had become the first Coast Guard helicopter pilot. Coast Guard helicopter pilot number 1 in September 1943, flying the fragile Sikorsky HNS-1 hoverfly helicopter. Erickson was a big believer in the future of helicopters, envisioning that one day they could be used for rescuing people on both land and sea. Erickson was also an instructor who trained 102 helicopter pilots and 225 mechanics, including personnel from the U.S. Army Air Corps, Navy, and Coast Guard, as well as the British Army, Royal Air Force, and Royal Navy. On 3 January 1944, Erickson received word that the hospital at Sandy Hook was in desperate need of blood plasma to save some of the surviving crewmen from the Turner disaster. Erickson answered the call for help, by lashing 2 cases of blood plasma to the floats of his HNS-1 hoverfly helicopter, and flying from New York City to Sandy Hook during a violent snowstorm that grounded all other aircraft in the area. Erickson successfully completed the mission and became the first helicopter pilot in the world to fly a helicopter under such conditions. It was also the first life-saving flight ever performed by the helicopter. Many of those wounded sailors owed their life to the plasma that was brought to them by a very brave pilot on board this new aircraft called a helicopter. As we continue today's dedication, I will read aloud the names of those lost that day. 136 sailors. Ader, John W. Allback, John I. Alexander, Arthur F. Allen, Reuben B. Amarine, James F. Anderson, Robert E. Anderson, Toxie. Appel Jr., Albert. Ball, Ralph E. Beluta, Walter A. Barnes, Clive V. Beasley, Sykes L. Baylor, George D. Bourne, Raymond E. Boyer, William H. Briggs, Henry B. Burton, Robert F. Buxton, Norman A. Claypool, Edward G. Cliff, Eldon L. Coleman, Gerald E. Coletti, Anthony J. Collins, Harold C. Connors, Thomas F. Constantino, Edward. Cook, Boyd F. Cook, Roosevelt. Cromier, Francis F. Cornelius Jr., Harry R. Corrigan, Leo J. Cotty, Francis E. Cower, John B. Crosby, William E. Crossland, John P. Colorot, Maurice L. Curry Jr., Samuel F. Cusio, James V. Buchanan, Jr., John. Delvecchio, Jr., Joseph. DeVoe, Paul M. Domke, Robert J. Donovan, Warren R. Douglas, George T. Duquesne, Napoleon F. Duclos, Fred B. Duffy, John F. Duffy, Richard D. Dufresne, Joseph C. Dunkel, Herbert A. Dunning, Edward P. Eisenberg, Francis X. Epperson, William A. Eubanks, William E. Fahey, George W. Fort, Penland E. Finney, William U. Flanagan, James E. Ford, Malcolm. Forsyth, Samuel E. Graham, James P. Grant, Francis W. Gross, Albert P. Grosvenor, Edward E. Grund, Jacob P. Gurton, Markel B. Gutzler, Edward J. Haddon, Nathaniel J. Haynes, Raymond E. Hall, George M. Hampton, Edwin W. Hansard, Rutherford. Haar, John J. Heinz, Robert W. Hendrickson, Helgima B. A. Hibble, James L. Hicks, William R. Horn, Grover G. Hovey, Delmer L. Giuliano, Peter. Lamoureux, Jr., Ralph L. Laurentania, Frank. Lickfelt, Robert H. Literal, John T. Maddox, Earl C. Mayer, Edward T. Matthew, Ralph A. McDaniel, George A. McDonald, James T. McGahey, Ralph L. Murray, Howell S. Newell, Henry L. Norris, Paul R. Nunley, William. Olmsted, Harlan W. O'Rear, Walter L. Pacheco, Ignatium. Payne, West A. Peeler, Clance N. Pfeiffer, Joseph A. Polvey, Calvin. Purdy, Jr., Robert. Randall, Henry F. Rankin, Jr., John T. Rash, Jack M. Rees, Carlton F. Rishido, Henry E. Ross, Charles E. Rydelick, Frank E. Schlesinger, Harvey A. Shockley, Clovis A. Singer, Jr., Alphonse. Shanks, Reed G. Sharp, Glenn H. Shoplick, Michael. Smith, Lauren M. Summer, Louis A. Sparks, Howard. Stanko, John J. Stroud, James H. Tackett, Clayton E. Tomlin Jr., Noah. Trubig, Charles F. Troy, John F. J. Turner, Farron. Vendreski, Henry. Waldrop, Robert C. Wallace, Cecil H. Warwick, Morris E. Wicker, Roy E. Wilkins, Charles H. Williams, Milton T. Woodward, Jr., Lehman. Wright, Charles D. Wright, Walter E. Ronsky, Edward F. Wygant, Jr., Henry S. and Young, Richard J. This list was provided by David L. Merrill, United States Navy, Radio Man, First Class, the USS Turner, DD 648. Today's show is dedicated to these brave men that lost their lives on that one stormy evening. It is also dedicated to all of our brave men and women of the military, to those that have served, who are serving, and who will serve, as well as to all the first responders out there who every day lay their life on the line to protect and serve. We dedicate it with this show and the song, My Name is America, by Todd Allen Herndon. May God bless them all, and thank you.
Born in the grip of oppression, I fought for my liberty. I paid with the blood of my people. Freedom has never been free. Now my door's always open to dreamers and friends. When I'm attacked, I protect and defend, because my name is America. I stand proud and free. My name is America. Don't tread on me. I cannot be broken. I cannot be shamed. If you hurt me, I'll get stronger, and I'll rise up from the flames, and I'll always stand proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. America, it is my day. My strength was not taken from others. Others gave it to me. They believe in the virtues I stand for, my respect for humanity. Now I'm challenged by tyrants who envy my power, but their vicious deeds
Good afternoon, Dan Perkins.
Yeah, hi, Dan. It's Ann from Southern Sense.
How are you?
All right. You ready to go on the air?
Yes, ma'am. I'm in Atlanta Hartsfield Airport, and I tried to find the quietest place I could.
Okay. All right. I got the dedication song playing, so in about 1 minute I'll have you on, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll always be here for those who will harm me. I'll face without fear, but I'll always stay proud and free. I'm America, don't tread on me. I'm America, yes, America is my name. It is my name.
All right, Todd Allen Harrington. My Name is America, and you can get that by going to his website, toddallenshow.com. And we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, High Plains Media, SHR Media, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina, up on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, all of the heck with it. You know what I'm going to say next. I'm going to tell you to go to our website. It's the name of the show. Put a dash in the middle, southern-sense.com. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie, along with my guest co-host for the day, Kel Fritzy. Kel, we've got an exciting show today. There's so much to talk about, so much to do, and we've got our guest on the line. You ready, Kel? You ready for this?
I am ready. I am ready. Annie, first of all, though, that was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dedication. Thank you so much for that.
Well, when we forget, we then take our heroes out of our hearts and minds, and so that's why I want to do that. I want to read each and every one of those sailors that were lost, 136 on that terrible day, January 3rd, 1944. Please remember the Turner. Let's bring our guest in on the line. He's author extraordinaire. He is a friend of the show. He's on TV, radio. He's all over the place with a great trilogy, the Red Dial trilogy. If I can get my teeth in straight here, let's welcome aboard Dan Perkins. Good afternoon, Dan.
Good afternoon,
Dan.
and thank you for... Hello, thank you, and both of you, for having me on. I always enjoy this show.
You're always one of our favorite guests. I told you that every single time you come on. You're one of our favorites. That's when you do answer one of my emails every now and then.
I'm sorry. It's I'm a busy guy, but I see them. In fact, I did answer your email through AJ. I called him and said, contact her. She wants to be on the show. So that's how I'm on. And I'm happy to be here.
AJ's an ace. He is. Now, you're known for the articles you put up, your TV appearances. You also have a radio show that you do, was it twice a week, I believe? Is it?
Right. Well, we're doing one now. We're contemplating going to twice a week. Yes, it's on We actually do our regular show on Tuesday evenings on W4CY Radio, and then we have the last hour of a show on Tuesday afternoons at KJAGradio.com, and that's syndicated in 51 stations across the country.
Nah, it's a great show. I tell people to check it out. But you also are known for your Red Nile trilogy, and you are now starting to put out a book based on that, but not part of the Red Nile trilogy, something brand new, right?
Right. Yes, and actually, and I also have another book that just came out 2 weeks ago. It is, as my younger sister said, I can't believe that somebody who wrote this trilogy about radical Islamic nuclear terrorism could write a story about a little baby seal, a children's book. But that's out now, and I happened to be at a friend's house last night, and his 7-year-old granddaughter read it and just fell in love with the book and the pictures. So, yes, I also had the what is called the sequel, and it is in final edit, should be out hopefully sometime early first quarter. And the genesis for writing it was the fact that so many people, after I finished the trilogy, sent me emails or called me or saw me at a meeting somewhere and said, "You can't leave us there. We know these people. They're like family. You've got to give us another story." So I wrote the sequel to it, and it's called Ted Baker In Search of Terrorist Gold. As I said, it's in final edit right now and should be out shortly after the first of the year. People who have read it say it's an exciting book, and it takes place like the other ones all over the world, and lots of cliffhangers and page turners, short chapters, very graphic in description, and the technology is all real. And people who've read it have told me that it may be the best book so far.
Wow. Now, you promised me a copy autographed, right? Because I got to add it to the trilogy.
I did. Yes.
No.
And then I'm working on my fifth book, or my fifth novel, which I'm 84 chapters into.
Whoa.
And it's 64. It is a new direction for me. It is historical fiction. And that book is titled Abraham Lincoln and the Second Assassin. And I'm hopeful that will be out by late fall 2017.
So there's
fascinating story.
That's an excuse for you to come back on the show.
Well, hopefully before that. But yes, another excuse to come on. Absolutely.
But the children's book you wrote, it's called Peter and the Little Irish Seal. Irish Seal?
It's Peter, the Little Irish Seal. It is a story based on Celtic mythology.
Uh-huh.
And in Celtic mythology, there are certain kinds of seals that are called selkies. And they have the mystical power, should they want to come on shore and shed their skin and become human. This story dates back to the 5th century, at least, perhaps even longer, in Celtic history. And it's really a story. It's a story about a relationship, because we meet Peter when he's 3 days old, and his mother, Mama Kim. And we meet them, and it's a story about the relationship between a mother and a child, what responsibility the mother has to teach Peter to become a seal, teach himself how to feed himself and survive on his own, which he will ultimately have to do. But at the same time, and there's another story here, and it was part of the motivation of why I wrote the story. We have a situation in Europe and coming to the United States where the countries are becoming overrun with Muslims. And they're aggressive people, especially the radicals. What they're trying to do is to change the culture of these countries. And my son, my fourth son, is married to a beautiful young woman from Irish heritage, and they have been going back and forth between Dublin and the United States. And every time they come back, they tell me about the discussions they have with her relatives of how the Muslims are dominating in Dublin and other major cities. And they're trying to take over the government. They're trying to change the signage. They're trying to change the laws. And they're trying to destroy Irish culture. So I felt it was important to try and preserve a piece of Celtic history and do it in a child's book format so that a grandparent could give it to a grandchild. And a grandchild, it's designed as a read-to-me book for children's 2 to 7. But I was with a 7-year-old last night who sat down and read the whole book, and she said, I've never heard of this before, and she loved the story. So I'm trying to preserve, it's the first of what will be a series of books in the Little Irish Seal. But Little Irish Seal, the Irish name Ronan stands for, or means, Little Irish Seal. So there's history, there's tradition, there's a relationship between a mother and a child is trying to learn to understand who he is and where he's supposed to go. And it's a beautiful story, and the illustrations were done by an artist in India. She fell in love with the story and said she had to do the illustrations. And I sent her a copy of the book, and she got it 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And she said, I'm just amazed at what you were able to do with it. So if you go to danperkins.guru, on the home page down the lower right-hand side or lower center, you'll see all 4 books. And there's a special offer on Peter. There's a special offer that says if you buy the hard copy book and the plush toy of Peter for $25, I will donate $2.50 to the Songs and Stories Foundation for Soldiers.
Yeah, I was going to mention the thing that you have on your website, because I've got on the show page, and Dan, you know I tell you this all the time, that the majority of people listen to the podcast later on, so they can just look at the description while they're listening in and click on the link on our show page which will take them to your website, and they can read and get your books through that website. Also putting it up in the chat room, because
Right.
we've got a lot of our friends up in the chat room today too. You know, when I was going to high school, I fell in love with mythology. You know, I was raised Roman Catholic, so you can say you're dealing with a lot of stuff there. But, you know, with mythology, I actually started comparing the Bible to ancient myths. And there's a lot of similarities and
Right.
a lot of overlapping that people don't realize. And as you said, we've got
Right.
Islam trying to rewrite our history and our traditions and cultures. So it is important that people know these mythologies as well as the foundation of Christianity, which existed for
Yes.
600 years prior to Islam ever coming into being. So for
Right.
the last 1,400 years, now going on 1,500 years, we have been at war with Islam because it contradicts everything that mythology and Christianity has taught us.
Absolutely. And so I felt a responsibility as an author who had written so much about radical Islamism that when I heard about this attack upon Irish culture and tradition and history, I guess I was just compelled that I had to do something about it, but I wanted to do it in such a way as I could make that history enjoyable for small children. And even grandparents and parents can read the book and learn more about Irish history.
And that it is fascinating. But it's a funny way you fell into writing. You were on vacation, and you were kind of like bored, and you ended up taking up a writing class?
I took an introduction class to writing mysteries and thrillers. It was 4 classes, and the instructor said to me the very first day, and to the rest of us, you will know within 2 weeks whether you can be a writer. And I listened to what the woman said, but I said, how is that possible? I mean, I can't even change my golf swing in 2 weeks. How could I find out if I have the ability to be a writer? And she said, just trust me. And I went home the first night. I wrote 1,000 words. I wrote the title of the book, the primary characters, and I knew how it was going to end. By the time I got in for the second class a week later, I'd written 5,000 words. And I said to the instructor, I said, you know that I have no background, no formal training or education in creative writing. I said, if I told you that I knew how the book ended at 1,000 words, what would you think? And she says, well, what do you mean how it ends? I said, on that first night, I saw in my mind's eye the last line in the last paragraph in the last chapter. And she said, no, I don't think that's normal. And what's been amazing is that even in books 2 and 3, even in this sequel that I finished, I knew how that one was going to end before I even finished the trilogy. And then on the Lincoln book, I know how it ended literally at the end of the first class 4 years ago.
Wow. It's amazing. And it actually changed your life.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I said that actually
it has. I mean, it's created the opportunity for me to speak to wonderful people like you and your co-host. 40 to 60 times a month to do radio and television and to write for six different blogs, current events commentary. I mean, it's just been an explosive, and then to start the foundation 2 years ago and see how much it's grown in 2 years. We have over 10,000 players we've distributed, and we're in 53 institutions across the United States from a startup 2 years ago to December. I mean, it's been a phenomenal 4 years of fundamental change in my life.
Yeah, the foundation you started is Songs and Stories for Soldiers, which they can go to, which is the teeth and backwards again, Song and Stories for Soldiers.us, correct?
.us, yes, that's correct. And on there you can see all kinds of information about traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder. You can see all the organizations we're working with. You can see letters and notes from hospitals and individuals and doctors and nurses about the program across the country. It's just been an amazing fight. And then for the soldier who signs up for the program, which costs them nothing, when they go into their side of the website, they can choose from 3 million songs, over 100,000 audiobooks, 30,000 old-time radio shows, and 4 more additional sleep audio programs, because we're focused on post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep deprivation, and suicide.
It's great work, because we had you on when you were just starting up, and it went from such a small operation to such a phenomenal, and you helped so many veterans, which is important.
10,000 that we've distributed players to, but there are probably many more thousands. And if I could just take a moment to speak to both of you, because I want to see if you can help me with insight. We have been talking about it, Songs and Stories, as I travel all over the country, and I'm in Atlanta, and I was at the Atlanta VA hospital this week. Just an amazing facility. But only 2 months ago, we saw for the first time a breakdown of the suicide rate between male veterans and female veterans. Now, male veterans have a suicide rate 4 times their counterparts in civilian life. The shocking thing is it was now the first time in the history of the VA that they have now begun to report female veteran suicides. And here's what I'm dealing with, and this is why this is important to have this conversation with you. And if your audience that's listening can help, I appreciate it. The female veteran suicide rate, Annie, is 12 times the civilian rate.
Yeah.
12 times. That's an astronomical number. According to the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration, 40% of that suicide rate comes from women who have been sexually harassed. But you take 40% of 12, that's 4.8%. Out of 12, you're looking at a suicide rate, non-sexual harassment, 50% greater than males. So when we started, not many people were talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, and we've hopefully, through our work, been raised the level of information and knowledge about PTSD. But now we're on a new mission, and that is, how do we reach out to those women veterans who may be thinking about suicide, contemplating it? What is, the two of you, I'm asking the question now, what do you think is the best way to reach out to those women who may not belong to a particular veterans organization, but they're out there and are contemplating suicide and looking and not knowing what to do? So do either of you have any suggestions that can help me help women veterans?
You know, you're making me go through the back of my mind, and I know somewhere I have it in my paperwork here, but we did feature an organization that worked with homeless veterans, especially when you're dealing with suicide rates. And I'm going to have to go back to see if I can find that connection, and if I do, I'll send it to you. But there's something in the back of my mind. I'd love to have it. I did, I think, about a year ago, where we were talking about this very issue on PTSD and homeless veterans, and there is an organization out there that is doing work with them. How successful they are in the past year, I can't answer, but I'm going to have to go through old show notes. If it wasn't a year ago, it may have been 2 years ago.
You give me the contact info.
Yeah.
Give me the contact information, and I'll do the follow-up. But I'm really at a loss, primarily because I'm a man, and the suicide, the way women. I know this is a terrible subject to have at this time of year, but it's a huge problem. The way women commit suicide is dramatically different than the way men commit suicide.
Oh yeah.
Women typically do it through pills. Men do it through weapons.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
does your co-host have any ideas?
My co-host is up in Canada. Is there anything up there in Canada like this?
I think we do. We have hotlines, and we have hotlines for veterans up here in Canada. And that it's sponsored by the National Defense as well. But there's private organizations up here that cater specifically to veterans and that are suffering.
Any of them that cater to women veterans? Or do you know if any of them cater to women veterans?
I am aware of. Dan, I am telling you, this is a very, very, very worthy exploration, because this is something that is underneath my radar. I was not aware of those stats. This is devastatingly shocking. It's just shocking.
It is. And Annie, I can send you the report from the Veterans Affairs if you want, and you can put it on your website just to show people just how difficult it is. But when I get home, I'll get it to you sometime this weekend. But if your friend in Canada could give me at least a contact information about one of those groups, I can at least make a cold call and talk to them about, are they doing anything for female veterans? And if not, maybe they can point me in a direction. But anything you can do would be a great help to me and to the women.
Absolutely.
All right.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that Annie sends you my website. But there is actually something here, and I just did a Google because I'm a renowned Google queen. But there is actually something out of the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, and they do have a hotline specifically for women. And it is the Department of Veterans Affairs has launched a new hotline, and it's 1-855-VA-WOMEN to receive and respond to questions from veterans, their families, and caregivers about many VA services and resources available to women veterans. So if you want, Annie, I'll pop that one in the chat room.
Okay, do that. And we've got...
And send it to me.
All right, great. We got Sue from New Mexico on the line.
I will, Dan.
Let me get Sue over here. Sue, welcome to the show, Sue, and I know you've got an answer to Dan's question.
Yes, I do. I have a lot of experience with female suicides, even on a personal nature. So right now, until the VA system is overhauled, the most important thing is to get them in contact with any crisis line. It doesn't have to be just through the VA. So the more we get these crisis lines out, the more we can put them in contact with people who can help. And this includes their family. And also on another note, I don't know if you listened to Trump's rally last night. Thank you, rally. But one of the things that he emphasized was care of female VA members, who have served our country and who are in desperate need of care. And I believe in the future this is going to be one of the things Trump will address. It will take him a little while to overhaul the VA, but help is coming for these VA women. But in the meantime, please put them in contact with any crisis line, because, in those darkest moments, it doesn't matter. When you're thinking of suicide, you need someone to talk to. And it doesn't matter, what you talk about. I have personally talked to even veterans who are thinking of suicide, and sometimes they need someone to listen. Sometimes, they don't know how to say what they've experienced, what their nightmares are. But I will guarantee you these crisis lines, whether, I don't know about the VA, but I do know about national crisis lines, and there is a national crisis line. They will find out if that number is contacted. They will put that caller in with someone who is local with them. But these people, you can tell them anything. It doesn't matter how horrific. It doesn't matter. They will listen and they will help. And I hope that helped you.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is I'll put a special section. We're going to put a special section on the website for this crisis for crisis hotlines. But Annie, one of the things that we know from PTSD is that if you're a PTSD patient in a VA facility, their solution to deal with your sleep deprivation is to fill you full of drugs. Yet the research that we've seen from doctors outside of the VA says that the body resists going to REM level sleep where the healing. So you're quote asleep. You're narcotically drugged, but you're not resting or healing. We know that in most of the VA facilities, the mental health professionals leave at about 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So our MP3 program, which has the sleep audio and other things, has been a wonderful tool in helping that veteran, whether it's a male or female, who wakes up with a night terror and there's nobody around. By putting in the earbuds and pushing the play button, it can help calm them down and maybe save their life. So that's why we're doing so well, is because we've defined a niche. We know it's not a niche; it's a huge problem across the entire military. But now we have to expand and deal with the women more specifically. And I think the caller was helpful in terms of the press hotlines, and we need to put that on our website in a prominent way and start talking about women's issues and trying to get specific help for women. So I thank her for her call.
Well, I want to say just one more thing. One thing that I do know, and this has been going on for years, I worked in the federal system as an RN, and that the doctors, and there have been recent reports of this, they just, like you said, give medication, and they give huge amounts. I know personally of one person that met with the mental health counselor talking about suicide. Then he went and filled a prescription for 40 pills, which that night he took and killed himself. So there has to be an awareness of what is going on in the VA and these federal systems. And I do believe this will be overhauled. I don't know if you can put on your site, whether it's, for family members, caregivers, whoever, to be aware of the amount of drugs that are blindly being given and filled by the pharmacists at the VA system. There is no connection between the counselor and the psychologist and the pharmacy. I have seen this for over 20 years.
No, I agree with you. That's a little tough for us to get involved in, but we try and make people aware that excessive drugs, whether they be legal or illegal, is not a way to deal with PTSD. So I thank you for your comments.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Sue's call just got dropped. Thank you, Blog Talk Radio. Had it again. Oh, man. She's a good friend of the show. So here, she's back on. Hang on. Let me bring her back on. Sue, Blog Talk Radio dropped you. It wasn't me. My hands were not on the keyboard.
I know. Okay.
But Dan was thank you for the information. It is important that we get it out. And I just went and took a look at my page. I thought I had a suicide hotline number up there, but It's not there now, so I'm going to have to try to add that onto my homepage so that anyone listening to the show can, also just click on it and make the call if they need to. Because I have a dear friend of mine. She's now out of the military, but she was a victim of a sexual assault by a commanding officer. And she and I had long conversations over this, and that was when I first started doing the show. I've also had Nicole Starr on, who has the PTSD.org, I think it was. But I know she had to stop doing it because her husband got very, very ill, so she had to back off. There are people out there working on this issue. So whatever I dig up, Dan, I'll shoot it over to you. I'll be happy to help you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now, I want to switch the subject just a little bit because, we've got now Trump coming into office, and this is your Bailiwick, or I think I just pronounced that wrong, but we have a new EPA chief. Bailiwick, thank you. I knew the word, just can't say it. I'm doing a Slip Mahoney, right? Just another Slip Mahoney. And if anyone knows who I'm talking about, check out a Bowery Boy movie. But we got a new EPA chief, Pruitt, and he's pro-pipeline, pro-drilling, pro-cutting the regulations. This is a good thing for us, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, if you look a little deeper, this is a man who is actually the Attorney General for a state and has a lawsuit against the EPA, current lawsuit against the EPA, because he believes that their regulations are restrictive and damaging to the ability of the industry to work, that they were put in place specifically to try and kill the oil and gas and coal industries in the United States. So if you had to pick anybody who would understand the complexity of the regulations and the punitive nature of the regulations, it would be the lawyer who's filing a suit against them. So I think he's a terrific pick.
Yeah, it is awesome because we have a battle here because I live on the coast here in South Carolina, and they are so anti-drilling. But if you look at the plan they have for the offshore drilling, they're drilling where you can't see the rigs. Everyone's going, oh, it's going to destroy our coastline, blah, 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 all this. And saying, oh, what about oil spills? Well, these are not going to be deep wells. It's going to be on the shelf. So they're not doing the same thing they do in the Gulf where they do go down, beyond 5 miles. You're not going to be doing that. So you're not going to have the deep water wells that you have in the coast. And then they turn around and start talking about the sonic cannons they use. Well, they're not the same sonic cannons that all the research has been done on that were built in the 70s. These are brand new things. And if they're using them in the Gulf Coast and they're using these very same cannons off the coast of Africa, you do not have these massive stranding of sea life. You're not seeing any disruption of the sea life. People are getting the wrong message out there, and that's why having someone like him out there getting the right message out is so important.
Yeah, and I think that in addition to that, Annie, you have the situation where the technology, for example, for the frackers, has moved so dramatically in the last 5 years that they've become incredibly more efficient in their drilling capacity. They can find oil much faster. They're using a lot less water, so they've become even more efficient and better, lower costs, which means they're driving down their costs to acquire. I saw a study recently where traditional oil well exploration could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to begin to find wells. With the fracking technology, they can find and test wells in a matter of a week. So It's much faster. The faster you can get it, the lower the cost. The lower the cost makes us competitive on a global basis against the Middle Eastern nations.
We can be self-sufficient within a year, I think. Completely self-sufficient if we open up.
No.
Go ahead, Dan.
Annie, all we have to do to become self-sufficient is realize that there are thousands upon thousands of wells that have been drilled with proven reserves that have been capped and not been pumped. If we just start taking off the caps and just start pumping the oil that we know is there. Forget about the huge find in West Texas. But just what's been drilled in the Dakotas and West Texas that has been capped because the price was too low, we have the ability to be energy independent in less than 2017, very quickly.
Yeah, what gets me is everyone goes, you need green energy instead. You need green energy instead. And I stop and I say, and I ask them, name me one item they use in their daily life that doesn't contain a petrochemical. And not a single person can name a single item that they use outside of the air you breathe. I'm going to exclude that. But a single item that does not contain a petrochemical.
Yeah. You know, just about a year ago this month, almost to the day, I was in Germany. And speaking to the German people, you may recall that Germany, because of the earthquakes in Japan, they decided to shut down their nuclear reactors. And they built solar farms. They built solar farms galore, but it wasn't producing enough power to meet the needs of the community. So what German government did is went into the European grid to buy electrical power to keep the lights on in Germany. And all that electrical power they were buying in the grid is being generated by France's nuclear reactors. So what did they really save? I mean,
I remember that.
Oh, and you know, I actually at one point thought about putting solar panels on my roof. You know, in case we have a power outage, I can switch it over to solar panels. But when you think about it, it takes you, if you were to use that for your sole energy for your home, it would take you 20 years to make your money back, to pay it off. By that time the 20 years are over, your solar panels will have to be replaced all over again. But oh wait, you can't get rid of the solar panels because they're toxic.
Right. There's no place to recycle them. It's like the people who buy the Tesla battery-operated car for $65,000. They're not told that there's a $25,000 disposal charge to take the battery out of the car.
Okay, but that if the battery doesn't burn up your car with you in it.
Right. Yeah. So I'm sure that we will continue to evolve the technology of wind and solar and battery. That it will have a use and an increasing broader use. But the idea that you think that you can all of a sudden overnight change the ability of how we generate electrical power in this country by continuing to build more windmills and more solar collector panels doesn't work. And you're right, there are problems with how long they're good for, the acquisition costs and the replacement costs. It's all an issue that never really gets talked about by the green people. It's just the right thing to do, they say.
Yeah, and what about the wind power that they put these massive windmills out in the desert or out in some field, and they cause a vibration which causes mental illness in the nearby community because they get this constant humming that just is 24/7. So, I mean, they're coming up with great ideas, but they're not working out too well.
Well, I find it interesting that we don't hear anything from the World Wildlife Federation of the tens of thousands of birds that are killed in the paddles of the windmill.
Mm-hmm.
They'll sacrifice the birds. The World Wildlife Federation will keep their mouth shut, sacrifice the birds for the sake of the windmills. There is a power generation facility in Southern California that's done on solar, but not with solar panels. It's done with solar mirrors. And you have this enormous amount of acreage that's full of mirrors that are focused all of their power to one central mirror at the top of the tower. That generates an enormous amount of heat, which generates steam, which drives the turbines, which generates the electrical power. But they're killing thousands and thousands of birds who fly through that pattern and are fried because of the heat and the rays coming up from the mirrors. So it's not a perfect solution.
No, not only that, the heat generated from these solar panels and mirrors ends up disrupting the local fauna and foliage. You can't farm around it. You can't do anything around it because there's so much heat being generated from it. And then they worry about global warming. What is a prime cause of global warming if it's not these solar panels?
Right, absolutely. I'm about to be called from my plane. Can we go another 5 minutes and then wrap it up or whatever? I don't want to miss my plane to get home.
Oh, we don't want you to miss your plane, but that is absolutely fine. So the listeners know you're standing in the airport over in Atlanta, just a couple hours away from me,
right?
Heading home. But you know, I had a whole mess of stuff to be talking with you on, and I just wanted to mention the Trump phobia that people are having, the meltdown. You're watching the media, and I just want your input on it because you're watching these crybabies out there, and they're calling us sore winners. Oh, no. We're winners. We're not sore winners.
That's true. I know of this young lady, friend of mine, who has basically had an emotional meltdown when Hillary didn't win. And she doesn't know what to do. And she still doesn't know what to do. And there's an article that I hope will be on constitution.com in the next few days that helps clarify what happened in the election. And I think it will be entertaining to a lot of your listeners, the approach that I've taken in helping people understand the real reality of the election. And, you know, I was with somebody today who was telling me, but, you know, Mrs. Clinton won the electoral vote. If she didn't win the electoral vote, she won the popular vote. And I said to that person, okay, what does that mean? Well, if you win the popular vote, you should win president. I said, no, because the Constitution doesn't say you win by a popular vote. You win by electoral vote. I said, by the way, Mrs. Clinton won California, and she had almost a 4.5 million vote margin in California. If you take out her margin that she won in California, she didn't win the popular vote. Mr. Trump won the popular vote.
Yeah, and there are now coming out that there has been voter irregularity in North Carolina and Nevada. So Michigan just halted its recount of the votes. So there is some questioning as to whether or not she actually won the popular vote legally. So
right. Let me give you an analysis of the Michigan recount so far, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we can end on this number.
Absolutely.
Based on the most recent data, the Wisconsin recount showed that Mr. Trump picked up a net 3 votes. Now, the Wisconsin Board of Elections estimated that the cost to do the recount would be $12 million. They asked Jill Stein and the Green Party to put up $3 million, okay? So we have 12 minus 3. We divide that by the 3 votes that they determined should have gone to Trump. That equates to $3 million per vote in the recount for Mr. Trump. $3 million a vote.
Courtesy of the taxpayer near you.
Could the state of Wisconsin done something positive with that $9 million instead of spending on a stupid recount? And $3 million a vote is absurd, but that's the reality. If you only change 3 votes and you spent $9 million to do that, that's $3 million a vote.
Well, Dan, it has been a pleasure having you on. Your website is danperkins.guru, Guru. There's a link on our show page, and I welcome you back. You know, anytime you just pick up the phone, call me, and say, hey, Ann, I want to come back on, and you're there. You told me that you told me you got a lot of stuff we didn't get to yet, so we have to do another show real soon. Absolutely.
Oh, can I be here too? Oh, my goodness, Dan! Every time you're on, I go out of my way I listen to Annie's show twice a week anyway. But when you're on, I get extra excited. I think this is the very first time I've ever had an opportunity to speak with you. It's been such an honor for me.
Thank you, and so I will get a hold of AJ, and we'll try and schedule something in the next week or two to follow up the rest of the items on your agenda.
Fantastic, Dan.
Until then, thank you so much for your time and your generous time. And I apologize that I have to get an airplane, but I got to go back home.
You fly safely. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, dear. Take care.
All right.
All right, bye.
Check out Dan's
Bye,
books.
Dan.
Check out Dan's books. He's up on his website, which is danperkins.guru.guru. He's got the Red Nile trilogy. He's got a new one coming out. And this children's book sounds so adorable. I just may have to get it just so I can read it. Yeah.
You know what, Annie? I wish that we had more time because I wanted to share with Dan about when I spent a week in Ireland this past summer. They had selkie thingies everywhere. They had murals. They had statues of the seal people. And this is what I learned too, is that the seal people, the selkies, they inspired Bram Stoker, the author, who was born in Ireland. He was born in Dublin. And that was something else I learned. I was always under the assumption that Bram Stoker was born and raised in England. But he actually was born in Ireland, and he moved to London, United Kingdom, in his later years. But he was always inspired by the Selkies. It was the things you learn when you travel, Annie. I'm telling you, I'm telling you.
Did you get to kiss the Blarney Stone?
No. Well, I kind of did. I went to the gift shop and I picked up a little vial of Blarney Stones and a little glass vial, and I kissed that instead. Do you know where that Blarney Stone is located?
You're teasing my memory because I know my mom, when she went to Ireland, she went and kissed it, and it's in a well. And they have to hold you by your legs as they lower you down.
Oh, it's at the top of the castle. It's at the very top of Blarney Castle. And to get up to it, you have to go through the original stairs. They don't have elevators over there at Blarney Castle. That kind of annoyed me. But you have to go up these ancient stairs to get to it. And some of the passageways to get there, it's like only one person can squeeze through sideways. It's very treacherous, and it's way up there. So if you have vertigo, I strongly suggest you don't do it. But I was halfway up, and I started to just get more and more nervous because it's really high up there. It's got to be like 8 stories up there. And so I didn't. And I'm kicking myself. So I am going to have to go back to Ireland and do right by it and just give up on the vertigo. But I did buy a little vial in the gift shop, so I kissed that instead. That doesn't really count, though, doesn't it? I'm cheating, aren't I?
Well, we're down to our last 7 minutes of the show, Cal. I mean, the show has gone so fast. 2 great guests, great callers. Thank you, Sue, for calling in. Yeah, Sue, always great having her on the show with us, too. Yeah, always great information from her. And she tirelessly sends out the tweets on the shows, not just mine, but others also. And we never say thank you enough for all the hard work she does for us. And she asks nothing in return, which is absolutely beautiful of her to do. I want to thank Thomas for his call-in and everyone that was participating in the chat room. We've had such a great show, Kel, and we've got more to come. Do you know who we got coming up next week? We have Mike Hill. He's the representative from Florida. He did not win his re-election, I think. I think that's what Curtis told me, but he's coming back on. He wanted to join us. And we also have Doug Giles. Do you ever read The Clash Daily? People that follow...
Oh, I love Doug Giles. Yes.
So Doug is going to be joining us. And then at the end of the week, we've got a musician out there that asked to come on. He's got a new patriotic song release, Richard Lynch. He'll be joining us. And here's a blast from the past. I haven't had him back on here in a couple of years, so that's my fault. I think the last time he was on was about 2 years ago. Jerome Corsi. Jerome's going to be on. And Kel, you were going to let me know about Tim coming on the 20th, if he's going to be able to make it. Tim Burton?
Oh, I'm sorry, Annie. Say that again?
The 20th. I have him penciled in, Tim Burton, for the 20th, so I want to just make sure we're confirming that.
Oh, fantastic. Tim Burton on the 20th. That would be fantastic.
Yeah,
because it's going to be an exciting show for your listeners. There's a lot of new developments going on with Tim. and he will share all with you and the listeners for sure. That's fantastic, Annie.
Well, I haven't penciled in here, so I was just waiting for you to confirm it with him and get back to me on that, because I don't have a contact for Tim.
I can do that. He will be available on the 20th. I will just drag him by his hair and get him into the studio. No worries. I'll take care of it.
Oh, man. Like I said, we've got so much fun that's coming up, and I haven't even finished trying to book for the rest of the month. And I can't believe it. We are 2 weeks away from Christmas. Can you just a mere another 14 days, and it'll be Christmas Eve. Holy cow, the year has gone so fast, and we've had so much fun with all our friends out there. Oh, man, I don't know what's going to happen next year, but I better be ready for it.
Oh, my gosh, I know it. But you know what? It's going to be so exciting. 2017, new year, new beginnings, folks. I'm so excited, though, that I'm so excited that Curtis will be back next week. God bless him.
Yeah, and for those that are listening out there, his mother is coming along very, very well. Last I spoke to him, they were waiting. They were looking to see about getting her into a private room. So obviously she's recuperating very well, very fast. So thank you. He wants everyone out there to know he appreciates all the love and prayers and well wishes you've been sending his way, because prayers do work. And with his mom on the road to recovery, it is wonderful that you guys have stuck together like a family. You know, Kelly, I always say I don't have an ego, and I am always amazed about the generosity of people out there. You know, you ask for a prayer, and it comes in by the tons. By the tons. Mm-hmm. God bless you all.
Absolutely.
It's one of the reasons why I keep doing
Amen
the show.
To that.
One of the reasons why I keep doing the show, because the wonderful people out there that give me their love, friendship, and support. So again, thank you guys. Without you, I would not be here. I would not have a voice as I do today. And I'm starting to crack up over here. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Oh, my goodness. I don't even know how you manage to get through your tributes. You know, you are just so amazing. Annie, I swear. Boy, oh boy.
Well, you can hear sometimes
really?
I don't, but
wow.
It's time to close the show and say good night and God bless to everyone. And I'll see you back here on Tuesday, same bat time, same bat station. So be safe out there. And I say good night and God bless.
Love you, Annie.
If you find yourself in trouble, count on me, my friend. I'll get right up in trouble. You've been listening to Southern Sense Blog Talk Radio. Producer and your hostess extraordinaire is Ann Ubelis. The theme music, American Stand Up, is written and performed by Don Fortney. For more from Don, check out his webpage, Tea Party Music
90 seconds.
Southern Sense is a proud member of Ghost Fighter Radio and Freedom Media Network. Southern Sense is common sense. Take it out, Don. American.
60 seconds.
Well, look me straight in the eye. Tell me what you see. I'll tell the truth every time, yes, you can count on me. I've got the backbone, American. I've got the heart, American. I've got the will
10 seconds.
American, will you stand up? Don't sit down. Stand up, don't back down. Stand up and shout it out. Stand up, let's make it loud. American, 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 American.